You ever find yourself in a situation where you're completely stuck? Like you're facing a choice and every single option just feels wrong? Well, that's the exact crisis that sits at the very heart of the Bhagavad Gita. Today, we're diving deep into its second chapter, a part so important it's often called a summary of the entire book. It's basically a timeless guide to finding peace, even when you're smack in the middle of chaos.
So this chapter right here, this is our roadmap for today. You've got to picture the scene. We're on a battlefield, literally moments before a huge, catastrophic war is about to begin. And it's here that the great warrior Arjuna gets a masterclass in overcoming total despair from his guide, Krishna. And trust me, this isn't just dry philosophy. This is like crisis counseling at its most epic and profound level.
Now, think about this for a second. This isn't just some theoretical question. This is the real, impossible choice that our hero, Arjuna, is facing. He's a warrior, right? He's sworn his life to uphold justice, but his duty is now demanding that he fight the very people he loves. I mean, this is a conflict that's about to tear his entire world apart.
So let's start there, with Arjuna's despair. We need to get inside his head. Here you have this legendary, famous warrior, but on this one day, his courage completely abandons him, and it leads to a genuine crisis of the soul.
Just try to imagine standing in that chariot. The air is thick, with the tension of these two massive armies staring each other down. But when Arjuna looks out across the battlefield, he doesn't just see an enemy line. He sees the face of his grandfather. He sees his childhood teachers, his cousins, his friends. His entire life is standing on the other side of that field, ready to die by his hand.
And his reaction is just visceral. You can hear it in his words. His body is literally shutting down. He starts arguing that a victory that's soaked in the blood of your own family, well, that's no victory at all. He's defeated before a single arrow has even been fired. He just casts aside his legendary bow, totally and utterly consumed by grief.
Okay, so what does Krishna do? His response isn't some simple pat on the back like, hey, it'll all be okay. No, he goes way deeper. He goes right to the source of Arjuna's pain, and he does it by completely reframing what reality even is. This is the foundational truth, the wisdom of the soul versus the body.
So Krishna's first lesson? It's a total game changer, and it's all about this one distinction. He basically tells Arjuna, you are grieving for the wrong thing. He explains that the body, this physical thing, it's just a temporary vessel, but the soul within, the Atman, that is eternal, it's indestructible, and it is completely unchanging. If you can just grasp this one idea, it's the key to being free from sorrow. So Krishna breaks it down, right? He points out that everything Arjuna is afraid of losing, the physical bodies of his relatives, was always going to pass away anyway. The body is born, it grows old, and eventually it dies. That's just its nature. The mistake, and the reason for all this pain, is thinking that this temporary shell is who a person truly is.
And then you have the soul, which is the complete opposite. Krishna describes it as something that's totally timeless. It was never born, and so it can never die. No weapon can cut it, no fire can burn it. What he's really telling Arjuna is that the true self of his grandfather, of his teachers, it's completely safe. It's beyond the reach of any harm that can happen on this battlefield.
And he gives this classic analogy that just makes the whole idea of reincarnation feel so simple and, intuitive. Think about it. You aren't the clothes you were wearing 10 years ago, are you? In exactly the same way, the soul just sheds one worn-out body and moves on to a new one. See? Death isn't some final end. It's just a change of outfit.
Okay, so the soul is eternal. That's the wisdom part. But that doesn't really solve Arjuna's immediate problem, does it? He still has to do something right now. And this brings us to the next crucial part of Krishna's teaching, the path of action, also known as karma yoga.
See, Arjuna's first instinct was to drop his weapons and run away. He thought being inactive was the more spiritual choice, but Krishna just completely turns this idea on its head. He says the path to peace isn't through avoiding your responsibilities, but by transforming how you act. The goal is to do your duty, but with a completely different mindset.
And Krishna lays it out in 3 really clear steps. Step 1, you have to recognize your duty, your dharma. For Arjuna, that means he has to fight for justice. Now, step 2, this is the really challenging part. Act, but let go of your attachment to the results. Pour your entire self into what you're doing, but release that anxiety about whether you'll win or lose. And finally, step 3, stay centered. Treat success and failure, joy and sorrow as if they're the same.
This one verse, this is the absolute core of karma yoga. Your right is to the work itself, not to the rewards that might come from it. I mean, just imagine how much stress and anxiety would just vanish from our lives if we really lived this way. If we could just focus purely on doing our best without constantly worrying about the promotion or the praise or the outcome, that is the freedom that Krishna is offering.
So, what happens if you actually live this way? What's the result? What does a person who has mastered all this wisdom and action actually look like? Well, Krishna calls this the ideal state, the person of stable mind, or Sthitaprajna.
And you gotta love Arjuna for this, because he's a practical guy. He asks exactly that question. He's like, okay, Krishna, that sounds great in theory, but what does this person actually look like in the real world? How do they talk? How do they sit? How do they walk? How can you spot someone who has truly found this kind of inner peace?
Krishna's description paints a picture of true stability. This is a person who isn't just tossed around by whatever happens to them. They're free from cravings, from fear, from anger, because their happiness doesn't depend on what's happening on the outside. And this tortoise analogy is just brilliant. Just like a tortoise can pull its head and legs into its shell for protection, the wise person can withdraw their senses from all the distractions of the world and find safety and peace within themselves. And you know, here's the most incredible part of all of this. This entire conversation is happening on a literal battlefield. But it's not really about war. It's about the inner battlefield that every single one of us experiences. The fight against burnout at your job, the conflicts in our relationships, or just that low-level anxiety we feel scrolling through our phones. The struggle is universal.
So the wisdom of the Gita, it really isn't just for ancient warriors. It's for us right here, right now. In our own lives, when we're faced with our own impossible choices, the path is actually the same. Separate what's permanent from what's temporary, act with purpose but without being attached to the results, and build an inner calm that nothing can shake. The real question this chapter leaves us with is not if we're going to face a battlefield, but how we're going to choose to stand up.